First Contact's Fatal Flaw. Captain Maya Chen stared at the main view screen of the International Space Station horizon, her mind struggling to comprehend what her eyes were seeing. The vast object that had appeared at the edge of Earth's orbit 6 hours ago had finally come close enough to reveal its true nature. Not an asteroid as initially suspected, but something entirely artificial. Its surface gleamed with a metallic sheen that no natural space object could possess. "Are we still broadcasting the welcome message?" she asked, her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. Lieutenant Jackson nodded from his console. "On all frequencies, Captain." No response yet. The 12 crew members of the Horizon, scientists and astronauts from 8 different nations, had been instructed to act as humanity's first greeters if the object proved to be what they now suspected: an alien vessel. After decades of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, it seemed that intelligence had found them instead. "Movement," called out Dr. Patel, their astrophysicist. "The object is changing." On the screen, portions of the massive craft began to shift and separate. What had appeared to be a single monolithic structure was revealing itself to be a formation of smaller vessels, each still large enough to dwarf the horizon. They broke away with fluid precision, arranging themselves in what Maya immediately recognized as a tactical formation. "That's a military arrangement," whispered Colonel Wei, the Chinese military liaison. Maya felt a cold knot form in her stomach. "Continue broadcasting. Add that we come in peace and mean no harm." The lead ship of the alien formation changed course, moving directly toward the space station. As it drew closer, details became visible: a sleek, elongated craft with what appeared to be weapon ports along its hull. The design spoke of advanced technology and clear purpose. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," Jackson said, his fingers dancing across his panel. I think they're responding." The view screen flickered, and Maya found herself looking at what could only be an extraterrestrial being. Its face was elongated, with pale gray-blue skin that seemed almost translucent. Large, multifaceted eyes that reminded Maya of insect eyes dominated its features, and where a human would have a mouth, this being had something more like mandibles that clicked softly as it observed them. "I am Supreme Commander Vakari of the Dominion Fleet." The being spoke, its words translated through some unknown means into perfect English. "Your world has been noticed." Maya stepped forward. "I am Captain Maya Chen of Earth's International Space Station Horizon. We welcome you in peace and friendship." The alien's eyes shifted, facets catching the light in an unsettling pattern. "Peace, an interesting concept from a species such as yours." Maya felt the first hint of unease at these words, but kept her diplomatic composure. "We are eager to establish peaceful relations and cultural exchange. We have been observing your transmissions for some time, Captain Chen. Your species is primitive in many ways, driven by emotion rather than logic, fragile, yet you have achieved space travel. We have much to learn," Maya acknowledged, "but we have also accomplished much." "Yes," the Vakari commander said, its mandibles clicking more rapidly. "You will be studied further. Your emotional responses are particularly interesting to our scientists." Over the next 3 days, the Vakari vessels maintained position near Earth. They sent smaller craft to the horizon, and delegates came aboard. Tall, slender beings who moved with precise economy and spoke with clinical detachment about humanity. They asked questions about human emotions, particularly fear, anger, and hope, which they seemed to find both fascinating and primitive. Maya noticed how they watched the crew's reactions with scientific interest, recording responses, and sometimes deliberately provoking emotional reactions through subtle provocations or disturbing questions. When Dr. Karev became angry at a particularly invasive question about human reproduction, the Vakari delegates seemed more pleased than offended. "They're studying us like lab rats," Maya confided to Colonel Wei in a private moment. "Something doesn't feel right." We nodded grimly. "They're assessing our weaknesses. This isn't cultural exchange. It's tactical reconnaissance. Maya's suspicions grew when she overheard two Vakari delegates speaking in what they thought was private. Their emotional responses make them unpredictable, but also easily manipulated. One said to the other, "The Supreme Commander was correct. Their attachment to individual survival will make subjugation simple." Maya retreated silently, her mind racing. She needed to warn Earth, but all communications were being monitored by the Vakari. She gathered her senior officers in the station's hydroponics bay, where the ambient noise of water systems would help mask their conversation. "They're planning something," she told them urgently. "I think this is a prelude to invasion." "But their technology is so far beyond ours," Paddle said, his face ashen. "If they wanted to conquer us, why the charade?" "They want to understand how to control us efficiently," we suggested. "Minimum damage, maximum compliance." Before they could develop a plan, alarms blared throughout the station. Maya raced back to the command center, her crew close behind. On the view screen, multiple Vakari vessels were descending toward Earth. "What's happening?" she demanded of the Vakari delegate who remained aboard. "The study is moving to its next phase," the alien replied calmly. "Your species' response to crisis will provide valuable data." On the screens, they watched in horror as Vakari ships positioned themselves above major cities worldwide. Energy weapons fired downward in precisely targeted strikes. Not indiscriminate destruction, but surgical attacks on government buildings, military installations, and communication centers. "Stop this!" Maya shouted, lunging toward the delegate. Two crew members held her back. "People are dying down there." "Yes," the Vakari said, tilting its head curiously. "And your emotional response is noted. Interesting how strongly you feel for organisms not directly connected to your survival." Within hours, Earth's major defense systems had been neutralized. The Vakari ships landed in strategic locations, deploying ground forces that moved with the same clinical efficiency as their ships. Resistance was met with precise, overwhelming force. The Horizon itself was boarded and its crew detained. Maya and her people were confined to the science lab, which the Vakari had converted into a holding area. Through occasional glimpses at view screens, they saw the systematic occupation of their world unfolding below. "This is what they meant," Maya said quietly to her crew as they huddled together. "They think our emotions make us weak. They think our fear will lead to surrender, that our emotional attachments can be exploited. They're not entirely wrong," Jackson said bitterly. "Look how quickly they've taken control." Maya shook her head. "No, they're missing something fundamental. They've studied fear, but they don't understand rage. They've noted our attachments but don't grasp how those bonds make us stronger, not weaker." She looked around at her diverse crew, American, Russian, Chinese, Indian, Nigerian, Brazilian, Japanese, and European, all united now in a way that transcended national identity. In their eyes, she saw not just fear, but a growing determination. "The Vakari think they understand humanity because they've observed us," Maya said, her voice growing stronger. "But they've made a critical error in their assessment. They've mistaken our capacity for emotion as a weakness rather than the source of our greatest strength." Colonel Wei nodded slowly. "And that," he said, "will be the last mistake they ever make." On Earth below, as millions of humans faced the reality of alien occupation, that same realization was dawning. The Vakari had struck with precision, expecting compliance through fear. What they had failed to anticipate was that humans, when cornered, did not simply submit. They fought back. The fury unleashed. The Vakari occupation of Earth proceeded with methodical efficiency for the first month. Major cities fell under alien control, their sleek ships hovering above urban centers as constant reminders of superior technology. Humans were categorized, processed, and assigned roles in the new order with cold precision. Resistance was met with surgical strikes, not mass destruction, but targeted elimination of leaders and dissenters. Aboard the captured Horizon station, now converted into a Vicary observation post. Captain Maya Chen and her crew were kept in controlled isolation, routinely subjected to psychological tests and interviews. The aliens were particularly interested in how humans maintained hope despite overwhelming odds, a concept they seemed to find both primitive and perplexing. Your species continues to resist despite clear evidence of futility, the Vicary scientist Nevik told Maya during one session. It defies logical behavior patterns. Maya met the alien's multifaceted eyes steadily. Perhaps your understanding of logic is too narrow. Nevik made a notation on a translucent tablet. Explain. You see emotion as separate from reason, Maya said carefully, knowing her words were being analyzed. For humans, they're interconnected. Our emotions inform our logic. A primitive evolutionary holdover, Nevik dismissed. Your angry outbursts when we discuss casualties on your world serve no practical purpose. Maya had to fight to keep her expression neutral. Over the weeks, she'd learned that showing too much emotion resulted in more invasive testing, while showing too little aroused suspicion. The Vicary were studying human emotional responses with the detached interest of scientists examining bacteria under a microscope. What they didn't realize was that Maya and her crew were studying them right back. Through careful observation, they had identified patterns in Vicary behavior. The aliens operated on strict schedules. They had no concept of deception. Lying appeared to be completely foreign to their psychology. Most importantly, they consistently underestimated human adaptability, expecting reactions based on their models rather than actual human behavior. During their captivity, Maya's crew had been developing a plan. Lieutenant Jackson had noticed that the Vicary never checked the maintenance ducts after their initial sweep, considering them too small for practical use. Dr. Patel had determined that the aliens' vision was primarily movement-based. If you moved slowly enough, their attention didn't register you. Colonel Wei had made the most crucial discovery. The Vicary could not comprehend self-sacrifice. The concept of risking one's life for others was completely alien to them. They had evolved as solitary hunters who came together only for practical purposes, without the social bonds that defined humanity. Tonight, Maya whispered to her crew during their brief sleep cycle when Vicary monitoring was at its minimum. The guard rotation is at 200. Jackson, you'll go first. The plan was set in motion when Jackson feigned a severe medical emergency, a seizure that the Vicary had observed in human medical records but never witnessed. The aliens' curiosity overrode their caution, and when they entered the holding area to observe this biological phenomenon, Dr. Karev struck with a makeshift weapon fashioned from medical equipment. The Vicary guard collapsed, more from shock than injury. These aliens had never expected their test subjects to attack them directly, an irrational action in their worldview, since it would inevitably lead to punishment. Moving with practiced precision, the crew secured the guard and accessed its communication device. Colonel Wei donned the alien's outer garment, which would pass a cursory visual inspection. The rest of the crew entered the maintenance ducts that the Vicary had dismissed as unusable. While the Vicary had mastered space travel and energy weapons, they had overlooked something fundamental about the species they were subjugating. Humans had survived for millennia by outsmarting more powerful predators. On Earth below, that same human ingenuity was manifesting on a global scale. The Vicary occupation faced an enemy they hadn't accounted for: human asymmetric warfare. With each passing day, resistance grew stronger rather than weaker, defying the Vicary models that predicted diminishing opposition over time. In Buenos Aires, resistance fighters discovered that Vicary communication systems could be disrupted by specific radio frequencies. In Lagos, guerrilla fighters learned that the aliens' exoskeletons, while nearly impervious to direct attacks, were vulnerable at specific joint points. In Tokyo, hackers found ways to introduce subtle errors into Vicary data systems, not enough to trigger security protocols, but sufficient to create compounding tactical mistakes. The Vicary responded by increasing restrictions, which only galvanized more humans to join the resistance. They attempted to use human prisoners as deterrents, not understanding that this tactic rather than suppressing resistance, inflamed it. Every act of Vicari cruelty was met with exponentially increasing human determination. Maya's crew successfully liberated the horizon after 3 tense hours of covert movement through the station. When they reached the command center, they found only 2 Vicari officers, so focused on their monitoring consoles that they didn't notice the humans until it was too late. Restore communications with Earth, Maya ordered as her crew secured the station, and prepare the emergency protocols. We're going to send a message to every resistance cell we can reach. The information they had gathered during their captivity proved invaluable. The crew had mapped Vicari physiological weaknesses, communication protocols, and, most importantly, the fundamental flaw in their understanding of humanity. Maya broadcast a message to Earth's scattered resistance forces. They don't understand what makes us human. They see our emotions as weaknesses to exploit. They don't comprehend that our rage can fuel us, that our love for each other makes us stronger, that our hope keeps us fighting when logic says to surrender. Use this against them. They expect fear. Show them fury instead. The message spread across resistance networks worldwide. Human fighters began to specifically target Vicari research facilities, where the aliens were developing their models of human behavior. Each time the Vicari adjusted their tactics based on these models, humans would deliberately act counter to predictions, creating confusion in the methodical alien command structure. The turning point came 3 months into the occupation, when Vicari forces surrounded a resistance stronghold in the mountains of Colorado. By their calculations, the logical human response would be surrender when shown the overwhelming force arrayed against them. Instead, the defenders launched a seemingly suicidal frontal assault. The Vicari commanders, adhering to their tactical models, concentrated their forces to repel this irrational attack, not realizing it was a diversion. The main resistance force struck from behind, targeting the specific vulnerabilities in Vicari armor and systems that had been identified in Maya's broadcast. For the first time, a major Vicari force was defeated. The aliens retreated in disarray, their rigid command structure unable to adapt to tactics that defied their understanding of rational behavior. Similar scenarios played out across the globe as resistance fighters exploited the fundamental misconception in the Vicari approach. They had categorized human emotion as a weakness rather than recognizing it as the source of human strength and adaptability. The Vicari Supreme Commander, faced with mounting losses that contradicted all tactical projections, ordered a reassessment. The initial invasion force had been relatively small, designed for efficient subjugation rather than protracted warfare. The Dominion fleet had conquest plans for 12 other worlds. Committing additional resources to Earth would compromise those operations. The human response defies all behavioral models, the Supreme Commander told the Dominion Council. They become more aggressive when threatened, more unified when divided, more determined when defeated. Their irrational emotional responses make them unpredictable and dangerous. 6 months after the invasion began, the Vicari forces withdrew from Earth, not in total defeat, but in strategic reassessment. They had encountered something unprecedented in their expansionary history, a species whose psychological makeup rendered them unsuitable for efficient subjugation. Maya Chen, now coordinating global recovery efforts from the reclaimed Horizon Station, received the final transmission from the Vicari fleet as it departed Earth's orbit. "Your species has proven anomalous," the Supreme Commander stated. "The Dominion acknowledges that we miscalculated the strategic value of emotional response in tactical situations. We will return when we have better models for your behavioral patterns." Maya's response was simple: "We'll be waiting, and next time, we'll be ready." As the alien ships disappeared into the depths of space, humanity began the process of rebuilding. The invasion had destroyed much, but it had also united Earth in unprecedented ways. National boundaries seemed less significant when compared to the boundary between human and non-human. The Vicari had come expecting to find a primitive species divided by emotional conflicts. They left having encountered a unified force bound together by those very emotions they had dismissed as weaknesses. They had made their last mistake in underestimating human rage, and humanity had learned its first lesson about its place in a wider, more dangerous universe. Earth would never be the same again, and neither would the Vakari.